His successor, Dr. Patty Bright, we were working on wildlife disease surveillance work, and I think Dave will tell you more about that. In part of our work, we were negotiating and working with the U.S. Geological Survey, and she came in and said, well, they don't want to work with us anymore. And I said, well, why not? And she said, well, this is kind of distilling 3 weeks of very intense conversations down to one liner. She said, well, I'm going to work for them. And so she left us and went to work for them. I've got Dr. Dave by the green card. He's Canadian. He can't work anywhere. So, in any case, there we are. But we've had an impact. And the training we've done over the years here at this facility, we've trained nearly 500 veterinarians. Well, actually, it's more than that now. 500 veterinarians here on site. And this television right over here in the corner, if you look on the second shelf, there's a thing that looks like a fisheye. That's a video conferencing unit, and from this room we are able to connect to the world through video conferencing. We teach classes at the University of Mexico, vet school, every week, sitting right here. In fact, when Dr. Bright was still here, she and I gave the keynote speech at the Wildlife Medicine Conference in Mexico City, sitting right here, broadcast on the big screen, using live video feed. We now have regular meetings with facilities all over. We have the capability. That thing's on wheels for a reason. We have 110 places in this building to plug it in, and from any one of those locations we can broadcast live, interactively, whatever's going on. If we want to, we can roll it into the surgery and literally teach worldwide as we conduct surgical procedures. And, that's pretty high tech for a piddly little organization in Waynesboro, Virginia. Let's see, what else is going on? Well, I don't want to steal Dave's thunder, but I will tell you that over the years we have gone into areas that we would never, first of all, the areas didn't exist in 1982, and we certainly never saw ourselves going there. Some of you know that in 2006 we signed a contract to provide a program to the Pentagon in bioterrorism surveillance. We've been very involved in biosecurity for a number of years, well actually 9 years now, developing models and publishing papers on the need for the surveillance of wildlife health, imports of wild animals, imports and control of invasive species. And then after September 11th, 2001, when the words bioterrorism, the word bioterrorism became part of our daily lexicon, I mean, who knew? Then we began to understand that there was also a very, very important role for organizations like this in the protection of our nation, protection of our people. There are 6 biological weapons that are on the Category A list, which is the most logical and probable and dangerous threats in terms of bioattacks: anthrax, plague, tularemia, botulism, smallpox, and Ebola. Smallpox is a disease organism that is found only in humans, and smallpox really in the wild, in population, has more or less been eradicated on the planet, but believe me, it still exists in all those little nasty laboratories that you hear about. Plum Island, New York, they've got the National Biological Weapons Lab. Moscow, and the thing was, you could order it over or through the mail for years to do scientific studies. And for years, nobody kept track. You could order dehydrated samples of these disease pathogens, and they'd mail it to you. Come in the mail. Post office guys drop a mailbox. Little vial, full powder. Add a little water and stand back. Well, we're now reaping the rewards of that sort of thing. So smallpox, while now eradicated for all intents and purposes in human populations, that's still a humans-only issue. But the other 5, anthrax, plague, Ebola, botulism, and tularemia, are all disease pathogens of animals. And every single one of them has implications for wildlife. Either they affect wildlife, or wildlife could spread it, or be the vehicle for introducing it. But most importantly, from our point of view, wildlife may also be the indicator, the most sensitive indicator of the presence of the disease. Tularemia is a bacteria that's considered to be one of the most dangerous substances on the surface of the earth. The most common manifestation of that organism toxin, the toxic compound that that bacteria produces, is said to be the most deadly substance on Earth. One drop is enough to wipe out hundreds of people. One drop, if it can be concentrated in the bacteria. Well, these are the ways in which our organization and our colleagues across the United States may be the front line of defense. We may be the place where the attack, when and if it comes, is detected. If we're connected, if we're tuned in, if we're paying attention. And that's been a lot of our work over the last several years, creating the models, creating the systems to link wildlife hospitals in exactly the same way that the Centers for Disease Control link human hospitals. CDC doesn't stop people on the street and ask them how they're feeling in order to detect the emergence of an epidemic. They go to places where sick people go, emergency rooms, doctors' offices, hospitals, pharmacies, and that's how they keep up with us. You would be shocked as we've gotten into this biosecurity stuff. Trust me, I thought Tom Clancy was a great fiction writer. Tom Clancy doesn't touch some of the stuff that's going on. I just can only tell you so much, but the bottom line is there is surveillance going on that would cause you first to laugh and then to think, oh my God, if that's what I know. In the Washington, D.C. area, there are constant monitors on the water pressure system in the D.C. suburbs in D.C. to monitor the flushing of toilets in the middle of the night. Why? Because if an infectious disease is introduced that causes intestinal disorder, people are up all night flushing the toilet. And I'll let you figure out why. But the bottom line on it is that those kinds of things are indicators of problems. And then they trigger other kinds of surveillance things. The work that's going on, I mean, there's a whole bunch of money being thrown at a whole bunch of stuff that is really ridiculous in biosecurity work. There's a bunch of stuff going on that would absolutely blow your mind. Just absolutely blow your mind. And we're a part of it. And we're excited to be a part of it, and yet we're such an innovative approach that it's hard to get your foot in the door among the traditional agencies because they think, oh, well, we've got it covered. In fact, we had a $750,000 earmark in the 2010 federal budget. So when the budget bill passed, this funding was supposed to come in the form of a grant through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Well, the U.S. Geological Survey, the self-same agency that has hired away 2 of our veterinarians, they went to the Congressional Committee at the last minute in a deliberately sneaky move and said, oh, no, we're already doing that. You don't need to fund the Wildlife Center of Virginia. They're amateurs out there playing this game. We're the pros. If you want to give that money someplace, give it to us. Well, they didn't give it to them, but they took it away from us. And when we found out what they said, it was all made-up stuff. But so turf conscious, so afraid somebody else is going to do something. And it's the same way inside the government. One agency won't share information with the other. It's scary. And of course, now we know that 9/11 may well have been prevented if the security agencies had shared information in advance. So that's what we're dealing with. But so here we are. Yeah, please.
Is the new administration more open to
Yeah, the new administration is not as new as it was, but it's still pretty new, and they don't even have all their people appointed yet. And that's one of the things. So, yeah, they clearly are. We've clearly got better contacts in this administration. But they're not well organized in the natural resource agencies yet. We've got some contacts there, but this is Congress that was moving things up there. And the trouble is, it doesn't really matter who the administration is. You get down to the civil service, it's like, it doesn't matter who the captain is, the battleship won't turn just by spinning the wheel and issuing orders. And the momentum of the civil service and the bureaucracy is pretty tough. But yeah, I mean, the bottom line is we tried to make nice last time. The congressman that introduced the earmark, Jim Moran from Northern Virginia, he's vice chair of the Interior Appropriations Committee. When he found out what they'd done, in fact, he found out at our Triple Eagle release. Some of you saw him there right after the release. If you saw us head to head and like this, while we were talking.
That's why you waited for it.
Oh, yeah. I had $750,000 waiting for him. But I just found out before you got, you're going to put it in the 2011 budget, we're going to take it away from USGS, make them pay for it. So I said, we don't need that kind of enemy. But we just want our money.